Hello and welcome back to the channel. Monday, new day. I am on with getting all the bodywork on this engine sitting perfectly. So starting with the cladding, which I rolled yesterday. If you saw the bonus episode I posted yesterday, you'll see that I took this piece of brass to Brighouse to get it formed to nearly what I need it to. Next step is to create some holes. So I've got a hole here for the safety valves, and then I've got a big hole here for the steam dome. Now I'm starting with a circle. Now the steam dome opening is never a circle, so I know already I'm going to have to do a lot of testing and adjusting on this hole, but I'm getting it very close in this first pass. So I've already scribed the line on before I rolled it and grinding back to that line, and periodically I'm coming in with the angled sander with a non-woven pad on, and this doesn't take my scribe line off, it just takes the dross off from the grinding. So yeah, it's a handy way of doing it, and just deburring it all before I give it a test fit. First thing before I test fit, I need to be taking the boiler off. Got to take the ash pan off first, which I thought I could pull it all off as a wanna, but ash pan's got to come out before I can lift the boiler. I might modify the ash pan so that will not hit the basically it was hitting the underside of the horn keeps. Just a little bit of a fettle on that will enable it to come off in one piece and go on in one piece. But yeah, before I do a test fit, I'm just marking either side of the boiler supports here. This is because I'm going to be notching the bottom of the cladding to sit either side of these boiler supports, and then I'm just folding out either side of the firebox end of the cladding. Just a rough guess, so I've just got a piece of bronze off the shelf and I'm just rough guessing at where this is going to end up, and I nail it first time, not even trying. I managed to get that one. I'm also having to cut a little notch at the back here where the steam turret is on the back head. So once that notch is done, I'm able to get it set much better on the boiler, and I can see where I need to adjust around the hole here. So it's a little bit on either side. Front and back is perfect, but a little bit either side needed. I also have to adjust the safety valve hole at the other end because I'm a little bit off centre on the mark that I made on it, but it's only a couple of millimeters out. And luckily it's also got a bonnet going over the top of it, which will hide any mistakes I made, although it's not that evident that I'm wrong. But yeah, it's lots of fettling here, so it's test and adjust. So I put it on, mark it up, take it off, grind it out, deburr it and put it back on again. And yeah, do that quite a few times. Lots of testing and adjusting, just notching out the lagging underneath the safety valve hole so I can put the safety valve in to test that. But yeah, again, more test and adjust to get it fitting just right. And we'll go in for a closer inspection. So up close and personal, it sits lovely down around the safety valve and the steam dome, and there's that notch around the steam turret. Happy days. Right, next step is I'm riveting some angle to the belly seam on this platework. This is going to enable me to mount the platework without the boiler bands, because the boiler bands are a fiddly thing. All that happens when you put the boiler bands on, as well as you end up scratching all the paintwork up. Whereas putting a couple of pieces of angle on the bottom of the cladding enables me to get the cladding tight before putting the boiler bands on. Just makes life a lot easier. And yeah, it's just I've got two holes in the angle which get riveted onto either side of the joint on the bottom. I've only drilled one hole to start with, rivet them all on, drill the second hole and rivet them all again. So a little bit fiddly with the size of it, Halfway through I did manage to get tired hands, and Paul just getting in the way of the camera there. He hadn't realised it was on. But yeah, everyone wants to be a star in my movies. But yeah, I'm just drilling that second hole and carrying on riveting. So just chopping off the excess. I've got the rivet header in the vise. Sit the rivet on top of the rivet header, pinch it off and flatten it out. Then it comes to mounting it to the boiler. I've got a ratchet strap. It's an old ratchet strap. It's actually only about 6 foot long, so it's perfect for doing boiler cladding. Making sure I keep the ratchet beneath the bodywork, so if I do scratch the cladding with that ratchet, it's not gonna be an evident scratch. And then I can just put my bolts in, nip them up gently. And also I find that I've got to just scribe in the front and rear of the boiler barrel, because it is just fouling a little bit on the throat plate and also on the smoke box. While I'm here, I'm just going to mark out the cutouts for the boiler frame supports. So yeah, I've already marked this down onto the boiler. I've marked the height. I need to cut these two as well, so I can mark that all up. And then just with a cut-off wheel, I can just nip those out. Caution that is hot, get some pliers, and then just file my corners square. And deburr. And it's a flip over and repeat the whole scenario. Not forgetting, when you're angle grinding brass, it gets very, very hot, use your pliers. Or you burn your fingers like I did. And then deburring. And just going to widen up the slot around the throat plate. And then just come back in with a file just to tidy that corner up. And then just rinse and repeat. Other side, just notch it off, file out the corner, deburr it. And then, fingers crossed, this is the last time. And now that the cladding's able to move freely, I don't have to use a ratchet strap. I can just pinch those angles together, slide my bolt through, nut it up, and then come back in with a screwdriver and cinch them down. But yeah, it's really satisfying doing new cladding. I really, it's a lot easier to make new cladding than it is to try and fix old cladding. I even say it's easier than stripping paint. For the cost of a piece of brass or a piece of predominantly steel is really quite cheap, and man hours going into that, it's not worth trying to recycle. And there I'm just marking out with my laser level for the handrail stanchions. So the handrail stanchions are getting recycled off the other engine, or off the other cladding, sorry. So I take all those off, and I've got a rough idea of the height according to what was already being done. Now, another reason for recycling the cladding is these handrail stanchions were not mounted in a perfectly straight line, and it played with your eyes, and I couldn't let that one lie. But yeah, the handrail stanchions come off here, going to get recycled. Then I'm actually drilling out some new handrail stanchions because I've got less cladding on this engine, or lagging, sorry. I need slightly longer stanchions, so I drill them out and just take off the burrs off the edges. So it's going to get new, longer handrail stanchions on when I come to drill and fit them, which will be tomorrow. On to the boiler bands now. So I'm just drilling out the holes, and I actually wiggle the drill bit left and right to enable me to have the bolt going through at a slight angle. As you always find when you bring two angles together around a cylindrical surface, the bolt will not go straight through the bolt holes. So I've just wiggled it left and right to give me a tapered entry into the bolt, and it makes it super simple for putting the bolts into the angles, and just putting them on loosely, and then I'll get them all into their correct location, and then I'll snug them down. And the little fix that I did last week where I chopped an inch off, it's worked perfectly. It's left about a half-inch gap between the ends of the boiler bands, so they can be tightened up as necessary or loosened off. And then just checking my spacings and just evening them all out. before I come back in and cinch them all down. So just eyeballing the handrail there. We'll revisit that in a second, but for now, boiler is going back in the frames. I will take it out again prior to getting the cladding off for painting. The cladding's all going to get loaded on prior to putting the boiler in the frame, and I've actually made a fitting which goes into the safety valve hole, which will accept an M10 lifting eye, and I've got a bar across inside the smoke box with the front end of the lifting strap on. It works really nicely for lifting the boiler on, and then just a little bit of a wiggle and it's back in place. And then just taking my lifting strap off, you can see the eye in the safety valve hole. So from there, it's a case of I'm going to put the reverser back in. Now, it was decided that we were going to just carry on using the original reverser. With the smaller cladding, there's still a bit of friction between the cladding and the back of the reverser lever, and also the reverser lever and the back of the wheel. But John's got a bassett-lowke, and that does exactly the same thing. It will wear the paint off on the boiler over time, but to keep it as original as possible, we went for that option. Now I've bit the bullet. I've decided I'm going to trim the bodywork to fit. I didn't want to have to do this. I wanted to try and keep this as original as possible, but to make it fit better, and also it gives it a really crisp reveal, so it's an even gap across between the barrel of the boiler and the top of the splasher. So I've had to grind them out a little bit. I've also had to grind the inside radius of the spectacle plate, but I think it really makes the bodywork fit beautifully better. We will be repainting all the horizontal surfaces in satin paint as well, because we prefer the satin look on the flat surfaces. Also, the horizontal surfaces, verticals, will all stay in the gloss. And now I'm just taping on the handrails, and you can see the original line from taking the measurement off of the original cladding to the new line is actually going to be spaced down 1/2 inch, and that is more in keeping with the actual Precursor locomotive. So I'm going to have to remake the handrails because they're not quite long enough. So I will be bending those up tomorrow. But yeah, it's really coming together now. It's looking really good, and hopefully I have really turned a corner on this locomotive, and it's looking better than it's ever looked, I think. But yeah, happy days. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.